There's been a lot of controversy surrounding the statement that a former Blizzard president made, actually saying he'd like the option to tip a developer at the end of certain special games. So I'm going to go in and just do something that most people don't do, which is read the article for context and understanding where the person's perspective is coming from, and then we can discuss. Former Blizzard president suggests that you should be able to leave a $10 or $20 tip for the devs because some games are just that special. Video Games 24/7 interviewed former Blizzard president Mike Ybarra. When I beat a game, there is just some that leave me in awe how amazing it was. At the end of a game, I often thought, I wish I could give these folks another $10 or $20 because it was worth more than my initial $70 and they didn't try to nickel and dime me every second. That is a bold statement coming from the former president of Blizzard who charged $70 for a mount in Diablo. Horizon Zero Dawn, God of War, Red Dead Redemption 2, Elden Ring, and Baldur's Gate 3 as examples worth tipping. I know $70 is a lot, but just an option at the end of the game. I wish I had at times. Sometimes games are that special. I'm going to go off on a whim and assume he's talking about the actual frontline developers, the people that are making the game, the spine of the game's direction, the creatives inside of the field. Not talking about just tipping the studio, right? And if that's the case, don't disapprove what he's saying by any means. But I feel like the majority of the population, at least in the United States, won't take to this well because the tipping culture is getting out of hand. I mean, for somebody to literally just click a couple buttons on a tablet, spin it, and ask for a 25% tip on a cup of coffee that's double the price of what it was 5 years ago, I don't know about that one. But then again, I understand what he's saying, because when I took that elevator down to Safra River in Elden Ring, oh my God. I genuinely thought this game could not possibly get any bigger when I was just in Limgrave, and then I put the elevator down to that beautiful section of the map, and I immediately Googled who the environmental designer was because it is just a gorgeous environment. I definitely understand what he's saying when it was worth more than my initial $70. I feel like Elden Ring was almost like 2 games put into one, and now that the DLC is coming out, it's literally going to be like 2.5 to 3 games, and you're paying like $110 for it at max. Now compare that to what Ubisoft is doing for Star Wars Outlaws for $110, and then that's when I do feel like this guy might be a little valid. So the more that I dig into Mike's statement, the more that I'm kind of like, this might make a little bit more sense than what's being said on headlines, which is usually the case on Twitter. But I don't want to blast it in my face if somebody's going to want to ask for a tip. However, if I finish a game that I just feel like $70 was just like well enough for the game, and I feel like tipping somebody for like something that absolutely blew my mind, there's nothing wrong with that. They have like a QR code to their individual Cash App, PayPal, or Venmo, and it doesn't go into a pot that the publisher can kind of like pluck out of and just like take some off the top because they already made enough money on the initial game. $70 is plenty of money for the publisher. However, developers are treated like and this is exactly what I'm talking about. GTA publisher Take-Two did lay off 5% of its workforce and cancel games to find more efficiencies across the board. Some speculate the development of GTA 6 could be in the $2 billion range. Shocker, they're worried about return of investment on the world's most expensive video game. The company said that it had 11,580 full-time employees. What's 5% of 11,000? So they're laying off 575 people. I understand that companies and businesses aren't made to make you have a job. They're simply made to have profits, but at some point there has to be a humane standpoint. And this is just one of so many companies that had to make massive amounts of layoffs. So that there was a poll on the end of one of these articles that said essentially 25% of people actually would feel inclined to tip on a game like the games mentioned above. Elden Ring sold 23 million copies. With that 23 million copies sold from Elden Ring in mind, if you divide that by 1/4, it takes up 5.75. So $5.75 million in tips. Elden Ring took about 300 developers to make, and once you divide that 5.75 million into that 300, it will get roughly $20,000 per developer. Keep in mind that like a junior developer probably won't see as much as a senior developer or like a project lead. However, that would be the budget if it was thrown into one giant tip jar. And this is only assuming that everybody donated $1 on average. So a $2 average would make a $40,000 bonus. But I have to put emphasis on the fact that it is the game of a generation, and that this is going to be a very rare instance where this works so well. If your game is microwave dog shit, nobody is going to tip you. But with that said, I also feel like companies should just be treating them better. I'm surprised to see, especially on an outlet like Twitter, you can see that they agree, make better games that actually work on launch. Most times the developers are just the people in the trenches. Like, I feel like most people just don't understand the perspective of working in an office. To make your job as hard as possible, to squeeze as much as they possibly can from you. If somebody gets laid off, you absorb their workload, and essentially they're trying to make games for as cheap as humanly possibly, not the developer's fault at all. I'm sure that they're begging for help and want the game to be perfect too. Maybe the exec should take a pay cut for the devs to get paid more. Definitely talking about what I was speaking about a little bit earlier. Do CFOs actually deserve the money that they make? Probably. They probably work their asses off. I bet they made so many sacrifices to become a CFO, CEO, or whatever. All of those executive leadership folks, and you take $200,000 out of their $11 million annual salary, and you trickle that down to some of the developers, I'm sure that not only would it save jobs, but it would help their livelihood. I already pay $70 for some shit game that barely runs nowadays. I'm not tipping no one. Yeah, you're an idiot and you didn't read the article. I said that there are special games, select games, that he wishes that he could pay more because it doesn't feel like it should have been worth 70. It should have been worth more. Why doesn't he tip the developer himself? Because he doesn't work for Blizzard anymore. However, when he did work for Blizzard, it didn't really seem like he had that energy because Blizzard employees are treated like shit. Tip culture is getting out of control. This needs to stop. I completely agree with. I don't want to have the social pressure of needing to tip a developer after a game was excellent, the same way that I feel that I need to tip after having an excellent meal, because those servers aren't being paid. Like, they're not getting paid $56,000 to $80,000 a year. They're not getting paid anything really. They rely on us. I don't think that this is a Pandora's box that maybe we should open for publishers to just basically let the public have the responsibility of paying the developers for doing a good job. So like, I see that side of this too, and I need to address that because that kind of just reminded me, I don't really like the idea that like it would be a social pressure. I want unlockables to not be on microtransactions. I actually completely agree with you, Andy Worski. That is absolutely true too, but also read the article because he says as long as they don't nickel and dime you. When the developer wants a tip for releasing a game that doesn't actually work 3 months after release, when somebody can't read the article, good job, Tom Ferguson. God damn, dude, nobody read. No, I'll just buy the game, thanks. I mean, you're the 75%. That's also a perfectly valid statement. Like, if you just want to buy the game and play the game and enjoy it for $70, that's also really acceptable as well. Tips aren't expected. Except Marlboro Miles. That's a funny one. I like that one. But let me know what you guys think. I think that I have mixed emotions about this thing, but for the very most part, I don't mind the idea. After I completed them and I enjoyed it enough to maybe send somebody some money, i.e. the level designer in Elden Ring, I think that man deserves a raise and like a promotion, and anybody that colored and anybody that did anything to that, my God, is it tippable? Literally. Let me know what you think in the comments.